So would you like to just start with like a quick elevator pitch of who you are so people know who you are?
All right. Okay. Quick elevator pitch, and that should take what, about 50 minutes? No, okay. Who am I? Oh gosh, I am a Puerto Rican Italian from the Bronx, New York, who grew up a little bit, I would say, a little bit rough, on the rough side, just because my father was a little crazy, and so I had two brothers and and we all became boxers. And to get away from my family, I went into the military, and then I became the United States Air Force boxing champion, and then from there, I when I left the military, I didn't know what to do with my life. So, and I had taken ballet classes for my footwork in the ring. So I didn't have an education when I came out of the military, and I had those really real skills that I could use. So I was I was a narcotics guy in the military. I had a dog and two guns. I had a 38 on my hip, and I had an M16, and I had a knock dog, and I would go looking for drugs in the Philippine Islands. But when I came out, um, I didn't know what to do, so I was driving a truck for my brother, and since I had taken ballet classes for my footwork in the ring, I was driving my truck in New York City. I parked the truck, run up, take a ballet class, run back down, finish the classes, and that all led to tap dance, and I quit boxing, and I quit boxing, started taking ballet classes every day, fell in love with it. Ballet gave way to tap dancing and singing, and I started tap dancing on the streets of New York. Kind of then I started getting some commercials and different things. Gregory Hines saw me, a famous tap dancer, and I had a partner on the streets. We danced, went indoors, created a show, and got a big splash all in New York. And then we took it around the world. So that was about 7 years of that, and then we quit. We broke up. I went solo, and I've been creating original pieces. I write, I direct, and I teach all different kinds of things. I teach tap dancing. Excuse me, tap dancing. I teach boxing. I teach storytelling, solo performance, all these different mediums in the performing arts, all really to give, and I teach it to young people and grown-ups, is to give someone or give someone the access to find their voice, which I believe is in empowerment. And when someone has their voice, I believe they can do anything.
What is something that you believe in like 100%? Like no one can convince you otherwise.
I believe that if you can find your interior, if one can find one's interior, and that's part of the voice, and you can find that power, you can do anything. And just a little 1A, I believe the performing arts or the arts in general could really solve the world's problems. Slash with women, because women have to be in there, because there are too many men who are running countries, and men seem to get into fights all the time. That's it.
So I'm gonna split that up because
Okay.
that's a big statement. Your experiences with the performing arts, obviously, I believe, probably have contributed to this belief of the performing arts can change the world. Have you seen people being changed by the performing arts? Have you seen any how the performing arts have impacted your life and the people around you?
Yeah, I have. Firstly, it's Joe Orrach. It's impacted me. Oh, my! Did I say my name?
I'll put your name at the bottom
Oh,
of the
yeah, no
screen.
problem. It's impacted me. I came from basically from the streets in a way, and a pretty violent background, and always try communicating with this. What you say, and then I realized when I started dancing, I could put all of that rage and all of that those feelings and try to communicate with my feet, and taking that to different countries around the world, it tore down any barrier with voice or culture, and people. I could communicate people with people without saying a word, and that was one direct thing. Another one that when I worked on a beautiful project a couple years ago. It was an opera by Terence Blanchard, and it was mostly an African American cast, and I choreographed it and did the boxing because it was about a boxer. And I asked a lot of the guys in this, and they were African American. What changed your life? How did you get into singing? And they all said, I had a teacher who believed in me. And a lot of these, one guy was 6'7", was going to be a basketball player, and the arts, they said they said voice, but the arts changed their trajectory in their life, and it made a a monumental change. And I've seen it. I've seen where I've taught one time, Josh, ex gangbangers down in Los Angeles. I taught a room of ex gangbangers, and we went through a whole movement class, vocal workshop, and these men and women were crying, laughing, rejoicing because they got in touch with their voice, and that was through the arts. So I saw it firsthand.
So you said a little bit more about how you believe the issues with so many men being in power. Can you talk about your stance on that and a little bit about why you believe that and what that is rooted in?
Yeah. Well. Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, I've just been. I was in the military. And that was in the South Pacific. I I've been in athletics through boxing, and I've been in the arts. I've I've worked in as far away as Russia. I've worked in a lot of countries in Europe, North America, America as well as further north in Canada. I've worked in just many different places, and most of these cultures are men driven, men run. And when you get a group of men together, men are not taught, and this goes to your second part of the question, what it's rooted in. Men are not taught to get in touch with their feminine side because we're all part male and female, whether you're a woman or a man or however. If you're binary, I mean, we all have combinations when we start, Y's and X's. And if you are taught to dominate, if you are taught to be the strongest without a balance of empathy and knowledge, you start to try to crush everything. And that's what I feel a lot of cultures have done. And they've always put women in the background. Women have always been second-rate citizens, according to these men. And so we are taught what I call the big lie, um, that men are more important than women, whether it's explicit or implicit. And that just breeds a culture of I'm better than you. And it even goes a little further where I'll take it for Americans. Americans, if you travel, you see the way a lot of Americans act. We're the best because we're the biggest. We have the most. And that causes one to not be able to listen to the other. So if I think I am all that and I got something to say and I'm the best, why should I listen to you? Hey, get me that. Be quiet. And this fosters a real one-way street of not even learning, but of proselytizing how good I am and how. So that doesn't allow anything to come back. And the female thing, I personally believe women are stronger. Women are more empathetic, more rounded, more grounded in the earth because they are allowed to feel their emotions, and that's going back to where it's rooted. Men are taught just be quiet and be tough, so we're not allowed to feel, or we're supposedly not allowed to feel, and that causes a lot of inadequacies and lashing out. So if you're getting these feelings and don't know what to do with them, oh, shut up. You know, we react, and we don't react, I think, in a good way. So I believe our government in particular would be way better off if half of the governmental heads, senators, congressmen were female. Because then we'd have a balance and we would be more empathetic, and women seem to see things in a more comprehensive way. Men are more one note. Women they play a chord. So there's a lot coming in and out that men aren't taught. I think we're capable. We're not taught. So I think that's a lot of the root. You man, you woman, you be quiet. You say something. It's kind of uncivilized in a lot of ways. I think.
Thank you very much. You talked a little bit about how other people sharing their thoughts can help spread information. How different people who are shuttered to other people's ideas can be harmed by that. Have you heard any beliefs from other people? Have you had anyone say something to you that you took to heart or found interesting?
Oh wow. Yeah, I have. Um, when I first started taking my ballet classes, driving that truck, I met a man this dance, the ballet teacher, Carl Sandemar, and Josh. I quit driving the truck, and he said you can live in my apartment till you find your apartment, and he became my mother and father. He was the first person in my life to listen to me and to allow me to talk. He always, when I spoke, he listened. He just actually just listened, took the time to hear me. That started my journey on self-discovery. So the reason I say he became my mom and my father, my parents didn't do that. They didn't listen to me for whatever reason. I mean, I have my feelings about it, but that's okay. And Carl listened to me, and it changed my life. He was the first person who said to me, "Don't use two negatives." I mean, I might in a sentence, I might have learned that in school, but what did I know? I don't know nothing. And he said, "Well, no, I don't know anything." And I know it sounds small, but it's those small instances in life that build and make your life. We can usually handle the catastrophic, but we don't know how to handle the everyday things. And Carl, uh, that was my introduction to that. Even just through a little bit of one thing of saying don't use double negatives in a sentence. Then we said, "You want to go hear a ballet?" We listened to a ballet. We went to my first musical. All these things I was never introduced, so I was very limited, Josh. And when one's limited, one has only one belief, one way of seeing things. It's a rude awakening when you go into the world. If you don't leave your house or your little neighborhood or hood, the world is small. And so when I first went into the military, the first day this guy said to me, "Yo, boy, give me your billfold." And he was a cracker from the South. I didn't understand him. And I stood there, "You hear me, boy?" And I'm like, "What?" And the guy next to me said, "Your wallet, your wallet." And the military was the first place I really started to hear other people different points of view. And it took me a while because I was very uh, cocky in a very we call it I call it, and there's a funny thing, I was an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. So I may believe I knew anything, I didn't know a thing. But then he said, no, 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 it's not like that. And he said, this is my feeling, this is how I see it. And everybody, I was like, oh my God. And then I had to start listening and start realizing there are many ways to see the world, or even one issue. So that was my introduction of changing, starting to change, and Carl allowing me to be heard. And those two things, even though they're quite different, those were the initial. I didn't know the military. I was started to get the beginnings of self-discovery or lack of it. And then with Carl, his listening to me, I started to go, and I believe it's within. I believe life and life's journey is going in.
You talked a little bit about in the military. You started to learn about to see the many different opinions of the people around you. That in many ways speaks to the ideas of street epistemology. Um, is there anything that you had your mind closed on at one point, and then by seeing the people around you and by hearing them, you were able to change your opinion on for the better?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, a lot of things, Josh. What and what struck me just now is the epistemology is that
Uh,
what
Sorry,
was the word?
epistemology.
Epistemology. I'm
I
sorry.
used to think it was epistemiology, but that's something different.
Epistemology. Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, it's a great word. I don't know. I didn't know it. Epistemology is words, but you know, the military and my lack of knowing. So I thought I knew everything when I went in, right? I thought I was boxing. I came into the military. I was tough guy. Blah blah blah. It was all a cover, right? You know, I was fronting. It was all just, please don't know me. I am afraid of everything. I was afraid of everything. But I did go in, and here I am now. What do you do with it? And it was the greatest thing. I hated the military. I was not basically. I was asked to leave. They asked me to leave 1 year early because I was not conforming to military life. It was a honorable discharge, but on it said not conforming to military life. It was ridiculous. But what it did for me, and what I believe all young men and women, well, yeah, men and women, maybe, I'm not sure, men definitely, all need to serve something, not the military, but they need to serve something to be in a regimented situation for 2 years. And I also believe everyone needs to go to another country to see how others live. I just think it's a great way, especially for Americans, because we don't, on the whole, get to see anything outside our borders. Um, but I saw people that I had prejudice against, and they were from the South. I had prejudices against from people from the South. Um, I had prejudices against African Americans, just not realizing it, but just the way they comb their hair, or just the way they'd walk. I hung out with cats like that all the time, but I didn't live with them. So living in the same area, we were in what they call a barracks in the military. We lived in barracks, right? If you don't get with the program's going to get with you. Someone's going to upside the head if you happen to say, "Yo, what? Get the-" No." So you learn to live with others. But I would like to take it one step further. I would like part of all of these in military have classes where I learn about your culture, if it were African American, if it were Latinos, if it were Muslims, if it were Indian cultures, natives. Why can't we take little courses of learning your history so I can then make an educated choice whether I'm going to be ignorant forever and say, don't like you because of your color, your religion, your background, your race. Or I can say, wow, I know a little bit about that person, that group. Now I understand a little bit. We don't have that. So, and this is a religious thing too. Everything that goes, you, it's you, me against you, mine, you, and that creates other and boundaries. And now it's we're against you. So I think, well, what happened in the military, living together, you either tried to learn about others or then you got more isolated and then you became really ingrained. So it is one's choice, Josh, but if there were programs, educational programs, maybe cultural programs within this, because you look at it right now, look at all of the cultural situations right now on the street and Black Lives Matter, people getting killed all the time. Why? I'm afraid of you. I heard black people were no, I mean, this is crazy. Something has to be done, and it's not about the cops. It starts in a house, in a home, in homes where people are going, the those spicks, those Jews, those Muslims. And even if you don't believe it, you've heard it. You heard it. You heard it. You heard it. And all of a sudden you're like, listen, I have implicit biases. I have a problem when I see people wearing the hijab all the way. I have to, Joe, check yourself. Do I think it's cool? No, I don't, because I think it's keeping women back. But that's, so I have to always check myself. I have, one of my best friends in the world is a Tajikistanian, Muslim from Tajikistan, lives in Moscow. He's the greatest man, one of the greatest men I've met in my life. When you get to know people, when you are open and are or from the childhood, you don't know that? Let's go study it. When I was in New York City living in an apartment building with I have three daughters. One of them said, Dad, how come there aren't a lot of African American opera singers? I said, you know what? The gentleman who lived on the fifth floor was a singer at the Met. African. I said, let's ask him. So I said, I forget his name now. I said, Terry, could you come here? I said, my daughter wants to know how come there aren't that many African American singers or more. And he gave her straight from the source what he thought being an opera singer in one of the biggest opera houses in the world. So I think education, Josh, is a must. I know I'm a little, I get, this is why I teach. Because I believe if we all had the same privilege of a birthright education, then everybody gets to be able to make educated decisions. But because we have such a, what's the word? We have such a racist government, and not just now, this knucklehead, yes, but it's been systemic where the white power has put the African and Black Americans down. I mean, look at the disparity in economics, right? I think it was $200,000 the average white family gets because of owning a house, and I believe it was like $750 for the African American because they weren't allowed to own homes. All right, so long answer, but it's systemic, and we have to educate from the get-go, and we could do that through schools if the parents aren't going to do it. We could do it in elementary. We start teaching and not inclusive, just being real by teaching different cultures. Yes, it's inclusive, but I hate the word because just the word inclusive to me keeps other people out. Just be honest and teach the truthfulness from when people are young. because it's hard to train people when they're in their 20s or even teens if you've all your life you heard your parents cursing out people and putting down others. So that I had to learn the hard way from the military, and I learned it not knowingly. I just learned it by observing. It was on the job training. There was everybody was here from Alabama, Chicago, Los Angeles. There was guys from Watts became my friends. The Bronx. White, black, brown. Asian. Everything was there, and I had to go. What? And then I just observed, and then coming out, and then into the arts. But like I said, I've taught my children that one thing I taught them: treat people the way you want to be treated. That if we do that, it will be a better world. And so I watch them, and I enjoy the way they treat others.
Can you name a specific experience that you had where you learned something that changed your opinion? Like a specific thing that changed for you that was beneficial to you, where you heard something and it changed your worldview on something.
Oh wow! Ask me that again. It's an experience that I've seen that changed my world view on something.
Yeah, something you heard from someone else, from someone outside your zone, that changed your opinion on something.
I was teaching a workshop down in Los Angeles to ex gangbangers, and there was a whole big room of them, and I was the teacher. People asked me, "What are you going to teach?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I got to get the temperature of the room. I don't." So I taught them physical, rhythmic thing, and then I taught them a vocal thing. And there was a woman in there who lost two sons on the streets of Los Angeles by gun, uh, and she was pretty high profile because she had been interviewed by 60 Minutes and exposés on her in major newspapers in the country because she was doing a lot of work anti-gun violence. And she lost her name. She took her name as Sergeant. When her children died, she lost herself, she said. She went into this movement of anti-gun violence, but she couldn't give herself a name. She just couldn't call herself. And they called her Sergeant, and she went around for years. And I didn't know this until I read this in a magazine that she was interviewed. Um, this workshop gave her name back through the emotional connection, and the way I gave it, Josh, the way I had set it up. We did a whole physical thing, but then I watched this. I watched them, and they had a hard time speaking. A lot of these people had shot someone, stabbed someone, acted out violently because they had no voice, Josh. And so they gave them this workshop, physical stuff, rhythm, and then all of a sudden I gave them just a small little tongue twister. Billy Button bought a bunch of beautiful bananas. On top of that movement and that release, because I could see they were stuck here, that released their voice. And they started crying and rejoicing and singing. I mean, right there, I didn't know this was going to happen. This just happened. I got the impulse to do this, the intuition, and the spirit, right? I felt it, and this gave this woman her voice back, and she started calling herself by her name again, which is huge. And what that taught me was, if you give anyone the access to their God-given or their instinctual what is it? Not I don't God, yes, but their birthright. That's part of what makes us animals, the human, alive is the voice, the community. if you give them the access to that power, because it's empowerment of one's authentic voice, it will change you. And watching this woman and watching these men, um, it really impacted me. And the reason I use that for a global illustration, because I took that after I read her. I watched them, I felt it, but I took her story. Oh, this does work. And I've done it in San Quentin prison. I've done it in many universities. When you help someone access, because it's not me, it's because you have it. We all have it, but again, we're not taught as a youngster. So when I saw her and heard her, that she found her voice again, and it's through the name. That's a beginning. My name is Joe. That's power. That's part of who we are. You can change the world, and I've seen it happen in different cultures. And watching that woman get her name back was wonderful.